The navigation panel died at 4:17 ship time, and that's when I knew we'd made a terrible mistake, not the kind of mistake where you miscalculate a jump or forget to check fuel reserves, the kind where you realize too late that someone wanted you to find them, that the distress beacon we'd been tracking for 6 days wasn't a call for help at all. I was alone on the bridge. Chen and Voss were sleeping. Marquez was in the cargo bay running diagnostics on equipment that didn't need diagnosing. Because none of us could sleep properly anymore, not since we'd picked up that signal threading through the void like a whisper in a dead language. The screens went black one by one, not flickering, not shorting out, just stopping, like something had reached into the ship's nervous system and pinched off the connections one by one, methodically, almost surgically. I tried the backup systems, nothing, the emergency protocols, nothing. My hand was steady on the controls, but my throat had gone dry. Through the observation window I could see it, the thing we'd been approaching for the last 14 hours, it hung in space about 6 kilometers off our bow, and calling it a ship felt like calling the ocean a puddle. It was massive, kilometers long, maybe more, the shape made no sense, all angles that shouldn't fit together but somehow did, surfaces that seemed to bend light around them in ways that hurt to look at directly, no running lights, no heat signature we could detect, no energy emissions that matched anything in our databases, just this vast impossible architecture floating in a region of space that wasn't supposed to contain anything at all. Bridge to cargo bay, I said into the comm, keeping my voice level. Marquez, we've got a situation. Static. I tried again. Chen, Voss, I need you on the bridge now. More static, but underneath it I don't know, maybe nothing, maybe something that sounded almost like breathing. The ship's interior lights dimmed to emergency red. I could hear the life support systems changing pitch, cycling down to minimum. We had air for maybe 8 hours on reserve power, less if something else failed. I pushed away from the command console and headed for the corridor, moving fast but not running. Running would mean panic, and panic would mean I'd already lost. The ship was small, a long-range scout vessel called the Persephone. Just 4 crew and enough supplies for 3 months independent operation. We'd been hauling survey equipment to Station Taurus when the signal came through. 48 hours of looping audio, no video, no identification, just a voice saying the same thing over and over. Cartography error, position incorrect, we are not where we should be. Command had logged it as a navigation malfunction from a lost mining ship, but something in that voice, the flatness of it, the way certain words seemed to carry weight they shouldn't, had made our captain volunteer to investigate. Captain Reeves, who'd served 30 years in deep space and claimed she could smell trouble through a bulkhead. Captain Reeves, who'd walked into the airlock 3 days ago and opened the outer door without her suit on. We'd found her 40 minutes later, pulled back inside by the emergency retrieval system, technically alive but wrong, her eyes open and unblinking, her lips moving without sound. Chen, who had medical training, said her vitals were stable, but when I'd asked Reeves what happened, she'd turned her head toward me with a smile that belonged on someone else's face and said, I saw it, the place where all the lost things go. We'd sedated her, put her in medical isolation. That was 2.5 days ago, and she hadn't moved since except to breathe. The corridor lights were failing now, sections dropping into darkness as I passed. I could hear something in the walls, not the usual creaks and groans of a ship under pressure, but something rhythmic, purposeful. I reached the crew quarters. Chen's door was open. Her bunk was empty, sheets pulled back like she'd just gotten up, but the digital clock on her wall had stopped at 4:17. Everything in the room looked normal except for one thing. Her personal tablet was on the floor, screen still lit, displaying a message in text she'd apparently been typing when something interrupted her. It's not a ship, it's not a ship, it's not a ship, the message repeated down the screen, hundreds of lines, the words degrading into nonsense characters toward the bottom. I backed out of the room. Voss's quarters were empty too, but his door was sealed. I overrode the lock and immediately wished I hadn't. He'd covered every surface, walls, ceiling, floor with calculations, not written, scratched, deep gouges in the metal, equations I didn't recognize flowing from one wall to another in spirals that made my eyes water if I tried to follow them too long. In the center of the floor he'd written in what looked like his own blood, the mass is wrong. I sealed the door and kept moving. The cargo bay was at the ship's stern, a large open space currently holding 3 survey drones, 2 EVA suits and enough scientific equipment to establish a basic research outpost. The lights were still working here but barely, just enough to cast everything in deep shadow. Marquez, My voice echoed strangely like the bay was larger than it should be. I found her sitting against the far wall, knees pulled up to her chest, staring at one of the external monitors. The screen showed the view outside, the massive structure hanging in space, closer now than it had been minutes ago even though our engines were offline. "It's beautiful," Marquez said. She didn't look at me. "I've been watching it for 3 hours, the way it moves. Do you see? It's not moving through space, space is moving around it." "The bridge lost power," I said. "We need to." "I've been listening to the hull," she interrupted. "Something's pressing against it." "Not from outside, from between." "Between what?" "Between here and there, between where we are and where we think we are. Did you know we're in the wrong place, Harris? We've been in the wrong place since we followed that signal. We just didn't notice because we kept moving and momentum feels like progress." I grabbed her arm, tried to pull her up. She didn't resist but didn't help either. Just let me haul her to her feet like a ragdoll. "Where are Chen and Voss?" "Chen went to check on the captain 2 hours ago. Voss is probably in the spaces. Between spaces by now. He figured it out first, you know, about the mass. The ship out there doesn't have the right mass for its size. It's too heavy and too light at the same time, and that's impossible unless it's not really here, or unless we're not really here, or unless—" "Focus," I snapped. "We need to restore power and get out of here." Marquez laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Get out, Harris, we're already out. We got out 6 days ago when we changed course to follow the signal. Everything since then has been the getting out part. We just haven't finished yet." I was pulling her toward the corridor when the cargo bay door slammed shut, not closed, slammed, with enough force to shake the deck plates. The lock engaged with a heavy clunk that echoed through the bay. "Override," I said to the control panel. "Authorization Harris 77 Delta." The panel's screen lit up, but instead of the normal security interface it showed text scrolling by too fast to read, not gibberish, words I recognized, parts of the ship's logs, personal messages we'd sent and received, fragments of conversations from weeks ago, all pouring across the screen in a flood of memory and data that shouldn't be accessible through a door control. Then it stopped and a single line appeared. "Why did you come looking?" Marquez made a sound, half sob, half laugh. "It's been waiting, all this time, just waiting for someone to follow the signal all the way in. The others probably tried to turn back, that's why they failed. That's why they're still here in the spaces where the ship decides to keep them." "What others?" She pointed at the external monitor. "Look at it, really look." I did. The structure had changed, or maybe I was finally seeing it properly. Those angles that hurt to track, the surfaces that bent light wrong, they weren't part of some alien design. They were ships, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, compressed and folded into each other. Their hulls merged and twisted, forming something vast and intricate. And fundamentally wrong. I could make out names on some of the visible sections, half hidden beneath layers of overlapping metal: Mercy of God, Stellar Dawn, Kusanagi, New Beijing. Ships from different eras, different nations, different centuries of human spaceflight, all crushed together into a monument to bad decisions and unanswered distress calls. And we were drifting closer. "The captain saw it first," Marquez whispered. "That's why she walked into the airlock. She thought if she went outside, if she gave herself to the space between, maybe it would leave the rest of us alone. But it doesn't work like that. It doesn't want sacrifices, it wants witnesses." The lights in the cargo bay failed completely. In the darkness I could hear the hull beginning to groan, not the sound of metal under stress but something deeper, something that resonated in my bones. "We need to find Chen," I said. "Chen's gone to where the captain is. And the captain's gone to where all the lost things go, didn't you hear her? She told you exactly what would happen." I activated the emergency light on my wrist unit. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating cargo containers and equipment racks and Marquez's blood-streaked face. Behind her the external monitor still showed the view outside, but something was different now. The structure was opening, not like a door or a hangar bay, opening the way a mouth opens, or an eye. Sections of fused hull peeling back to reveal an interior space that couldn't possibly fit inside the dimensions I'd observed. The darkness in there wasn't empty, it was full of something, movement without form, presence without substance, and I could see lights, small ones scattered through that impossible interior like stars. But they weren't stars, they were ships, more ships, still intact, still running, their crews probably still aboard, trapped in some kind of stasis or worse, kept alive. "Inside the collection, it's a museum," Marquez said, "or a trap, or both." something out here collects us, every ship that goes missing in this region, and there have been so many, Harris, you wouldn't believe how many if you saw the real numbers, they all end up here, not destroyed, preserved, added to the structure. That's impossible, you keep using that word, look where it's gotten us. The cargo bay door unlocked. Just clicked open easy as anything, like whatever had sealed it was done making a point. I pulled Marquez into the corridor, the emergency lighting gave everything a hellish red tint. Somewhere in the ship something was moving, heavy footsteps that didn't match the gait of anyone in the crew. Medical bay, I said. If Chen went to check on the captain, she did, and she's not going to like what she found. We ran. The Persephone was small, but the corridors seemed longer than they should be, like the ship was stretching. Shadows moved in the red light, shapes that vanished when I turned the beam of my wrist light toward them. Twice I heard breathing that wasn't Marquez or mine, slow, steady, coming from inside the walls. The medical bay door was open, the lights inside were still working, bright white fluorescence that made me squint after the corridor darkness. Chen was there, standing next to the isolation bed where we'd left Captain Reeves. The bed was empty. She woke up, Chen said without turning around. Her voice was calm, professionally detached. About 30 minutes ago, she sat up, looked at me and asked if I knew what we were really carrying in the cargo bay. We're not carrying anything except survey equipment, I said. That's what I told her. She laughed, said we'd been carrying it since we picked up the signal, that the signal wasn't a transmission, it was a seed, something that plants itself in ship systems and grows, slowly replacing the original programming with something else, something that knows how to navigate, how to find its way home. Chen turned to face us, her eyes were bloodshot and she had the same distant expression I'd seen on Reeves. The captain's gone to the bridge, she says we're almost there, she says it's time to finish what we started when we answered the call. We need to override the navigation system, I said. Set a manual course back to where? Chen's laugh was bitter. Harris, we're 30,000 kilometers from where we should be. The stellar cartography doesn't match, the reference stars are wrong. We're not in the same region of space we were in 6 days ago, and we didn't travel here through any kind of conventional jump or burn. We just arrived. Piece by piece the ship has been arriving and we've been coming along for the ride. The ship shuddered, not the vibration of engines or the impact of debris, a deep rolling movement like the whole structure was being pulled sideways through reality. It's starting, Marquez said. The integration, we can still shut down the core systems, I said. Cut power completely, drift on momentum until what? Chen stepped toward me. Until someone else picks up our distress signal, until another crew comes looking. That's what it wants, that's what it's always wanted. The structure doesn't move, it waits, and it sends out signals from all the ships it's collected, hundreds of distress calls threading through space, and sooner or later someone always comes to investigate. The medical bay lights flickered. Captain Reeves is on the bridge, I said. If she's trying to dock with that thing, she's not trying, Chen said. She's succeeding. I ran. The bridge was 2 sections forward, past the crew quarters and the main corridor junction. I could hear it now, the sound I'd been ignoring, the sound that had been growing louder for hours. It wasn't coming from inside the ship, it was coming from outside, pressing against the hull. A vibration that wasn't quite sound, a frequency that made my teeth ache and my vision blur. The bridge door was sealed. I overrode it. Captain Reeves sat in the command chair, hands moving across the navigation controls with practiced efficiency. The screens had come back online, all of them, displaying data I didn't recognize. The external view showed the structure directly ahead, less than 2 kilometers away now, its opened interior filling the entire window. Captain, step away from the controls. She didn't look at me. We're late. I didn't realize how late until I went outside. Time moves differently in the spaces between. We've been expected for weeks. There's nothing expecting us. It's just what? She turned and I saw that her eyes had changed, still brown, still recognizably hers, but with something else behind them, something vast and patient and deeply curious. Just a structure, just an anomaly. Harris, do you know how many civilizations have built things in space? How many species have looked at the void and decided to make something of it? This isn't first contact, this is a trap. Yes, she said simply. Both things can be true. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. Through the window I could see the structure's interior more clearly. Those lights I'd thought were ships, some of them were ships but others were something else. Organic shapes, geometric patterns that hurt to look at, and movement. constant flowing movement like water or thought or something in between. It's been here for a long time, Reeves said, longer than human spaceflight, longer than humanity. It collects things, ships, artifacts, even ideas if they're broadcast into space with enough intensity. It preserves them, studies them, and eventually it sends out signals to gather more. Why? Because that's what it is, a museum, like Marquez said, or an archive, a place where all the lost things go so they won't be forgotten. The question isn't why it exists, the question is what we do now that we're here. I pulled my sidearm, standard issue, meant for emergencies I'd never really expected to encounter. Step away from the controls, Captain. She looked at the weapon, then at me. You can't shoot your way out of this, Harris. The ship's already docking. Has been for the last 6 minutes. You've been feeling it, the way the corridors stretch, the way time moves wrong, the spaces between spaces. We're already inside, we just haven't finished arriving yet. The bridge lights changed, not failing but shifting to a different frequency, blue-white, cold and bright like starlight filtered through ice, and I realized she was right. The walls weren't solid anymore. I could see through them, not clearly but like looking through frosted glass. Beyond the Persephone's hull I could see other ships' interiors. A cargo bay filled with crystallized air, a bridge where 4 bodies sat at their stations perfectly preserved, their faces turned toward a view screen that showed only static, a medical bay where something that might have once been human floated in suspended animation. Its body transformed into something beautiful and terrible. It doesn't hurt, Reeves said. That's what I learned when I went outside. The transition is actually peaceful. You stop being what you were and start being what you'll be, part of the collection, part of the memory. I don't want to be a memory, none of us do, but it's not about want, Harris, it's about what is. We answered the signal, we followed it here. We're part of the structure now. Marquez and Chin appeared in the doorway behind me. Neither looked surprised. The cargo bay's gone, Marquez said. Just gone. I can see where it was, but when I try to walk there I end up somewhere else, somewhere with ships I don't recognize and writing in languages I can't read. Crew quarters are the same, Chin added. I tried to go to my bunk, ended up in what looks like a command center from a ship that's been here for centuries. Everything's still running, life support, computers, everything. Just waiting. The structure loomed in the window, so close now that I could see individual details, not just fused ships but the spaces between them, networks of something that looked like metal but moved like liquid, conduits that pulsed with light, surfaces that reflected images of things that weren't there, and faces, pressed against the interior walls of other ships, looking out, some human, some not, all aware, all watching. They're still alive, I whispered. In a sense, Reeves said. The structure preserves consciousness, not the body, that transforms, becomes part of the material, but the mind persists, every crew of every lost ship still experiencing, still observing. That's what the museum collects, not objects, perspectives, ways of seeing. That's not preservation, that's torture, is it? She stood from the command chair. Is consciousness without death torture, or is it the closest thing to immortality we've ever encountered? The crews out there, they're not in pain. They're not suffering, they're witnessing, forever watching, forever remembering, adding their experiences to the collective archive. The Persephone shuddered one final time and I felt it, the moment we stopped being a separate entity and became part of the structure, like a door closing, like a book shelving itself in an infinite library. The walls dissolved completely. I could see everything now, the full scope of it. Ships from every era of spaceflight, from the earliest orbital craft to vessels with technology one couldn't begin to understand, millions of them maybe, all connected, all preserved, all transformed into nodes in a vast network of consciousness and memory, and I could feel them, the other minds, thousands of them, millions, all present at once, not speaking but existing in a shared space where thought and experience flowed like water. I could sense the crew of a colony ship from Earth's first expansion era still processing their journey centuries after their bodies had dissolved. I could feel the last thoughts of an alien species I couldn't name, their final moments preserved in perfect detail. I could touch the dreams of things that had never been human, never been organic but had still found their way here. The collection wanted to know us, wanted to add our perspective to its infinite archive, wanted to understand what it meant to be human in this specific moment, this specific ship, facing this specific horror, and it would keep us forever so it could study that understanding. I can feel my body changing, Marquez said. Her voice was distant, already half gone. it doesn't hurt, Reeves was right, it's just transformation. Chen had sat down on the deck, her back against what used to be a bulkhead. The signal we followed, it came from here, but before that it came from somewhere else. The structure didn't create it, it received it long ago from something even older. This is just one archive in a chain that stretches across the galaxy. Maybe across galaxies, an infinite museum, Reeves said. She was smiling now, genuinely at peace. Everything that's ever been lost preserved forever, every ship, every crew, every last moment before disappearance. We're not ending, we're becoming part of something larger than ourselves. I tried to move, tried to run, but my legs wouldn't respond. Looking down I saw why. My body was beginning to merge with the deck. My flesh transforming into something between organic tissue and the same liquid metal that formed the structure's connective tissue. It didn't hurt, that was the worst part, it didn't hurt at all. I could feel my consciousness expanding, connecting to the others. I could sense the first human to arrive here, a pilot from a military reconnaissance ship in 2087, alone and terrified, who'd been preserved at the moment of her fear. I could feel a being from a civilization that had died out millions of years ago, its final thought a question about whether anyone would remember them, and I knew with absolute certainty that the structure would remember, forever. That was its purpose, to collect, to preserve, to ensure that nothing was ever truly lost. My name was Harris, I was the navigator of the Persephone. We'd followed a distress signal to what we thought was a stranded ship and found instead a monument to every wrong turn ever taken in space, and now we were part of it. The last thing I saw through the window, through eyes that were no longer entirely my own, was space, normal empty space, the stars in their proper positions, the void as it should be, indifferent and vast, and I understood that we were still there technically, still existing in the same region where we'd encountered the signal. The structure didn't exist in a different dimension or on another plane, it was right here, always had been, occupying the same space as normal reality but shifted slightly. Existing in the gaps between what was and what could be. Ships would pass through this region, they'd scan and find nothing, their instruments would show only empty space, until one of them picked up a signal, a distress call, a voice saying the same thing over and over: cartography error, position incorrect, we are not where we should be. And they'd come looking, they always came looking. The museum was patient, it had time. It had all the time in the world, all the time in every world. I felt myself dissolving further, my thoughts spreading out across the network, joining the chorus of preserved consciousness. Somewhere in that vast archive I could sense my crew doing the same, Chen's methodical mind cataloging the experience, Marquez's artist's eye marveling at the structure's terrible beauty, Captain Reeves satisfied that she'd been right about what waited in the spaces between. And I tried to scream, but I didn't have a mouth anymore. I tried to run, but I didn't have legs. I tried to die, but the structure wouldn't let me. It just kept me there, preserved, witnessing, adding my perspective to the collection, forever. 3 months later the survey ship Icarus picks up a signal while en route to Station Taurus. 48 hours of looping audio, no video, no identification, a voice saying the same thing over and over: navigation error, course correction needed, we are not where we should be. The captain listens to it twice, then logs it as a probable malfunction from the Persephone, which went missing in the region 3 months earlier. He considers investigating. In the end he decides to volunteer his ship for the search. It's the right thing to do after all, you always go looking for the lost.